So Rabbi say this week we're gonna be learning, learning Parshas Chayei Sara, which is the fifth parsha in the Torah. You know, the fifth parsha in the Torah, um, and the third parsha that deals with Avram Avinu, the last parsha that deals with Avram Avinu. There's a huge difference between what happens in Parshas Chayei Sora to what happened in the previous Parshas. You know, in Bereshis and Noach, we were dealing with events that are life-altering, not only life-altering, obviously, creation of life, but then, the Chayei Tzadas, the Mabul, the Pelogo, the world was created and then it went through tremendous changes and revolutions. And also Parshas Lech Lecha and Vayera, the first two parshas that are dedicated to the life of Avram Avinu, are full of unusual things, most dramatic things. Avram Avinu was told, Lech Lecha me'artzecha me'veladetecha me'beis avicha, to go to the unknown. Sarah's taken lebeis paroi, and then Vayinaga Hashem es beis paroi negoyim gedolim ve'es beisoi, and then a world war breaks out between the Arba Malachim and the Chamisha, and Avram Avinu gets involved, and then there's the Bris Ben Absorim. Avram Avinu is Mal at the age of 99. The three Malachim appear with Musanoshim. Sdoim and Amora and the Ori Kicker are turned upside down. Lot's wife becomes an Etziv Melach. Sarah is taken again, this time to the Beis Avimelech, and again there's Negoim Gedolim, and then Yitzchak is born to Avram when he's 100 years old, and Sarah is 90 years old, and then we have the Akedah. So everything in the life of Avram Avinu so far was unusual. Yeah, he experienced and he participated in drama after drama. In Parshas Lech Lecha and Vayera, we're talking about events that are totally beyond the scope of our imagination and Alachas Kama V'Chama of our experience. But in this week's Parshas Chayei Sora, everything calms down. I mean, from here on, we're talking about things that we know from daily life. I mean, Sarah died, and Avram comes lispoid lo v'lifkoisa. He needs to buy an achuzas kever to bury her, and he has masa matan with Ephraim and the Bnei Ches until he succeeds in buying the Moras HaMachpelah, and he buries Sarah, and immediately afterwards he gets involved in finding a shidduch for Yitzchak, and he gives Eliezer, very, very clear, detailed instructions about what to look for and where to find and where to look for. And he sends matanis, everything kedarka shaloilam. Everything is very regular and reasonable. And Hashem is masliach darkoi, and the shidduch is completed, and everything comes into place. I mean, Chazal do tell us that there were some nisim over here. Eliezer had kvitzas aderech, and for Rivka the water came up from the be'er, but in Pshutei Shel Mikra, there's nothing in the story that's extraordinary. In the end of the parasha, Avram Avinu takes another wife, and he has more children until he dies b'seiva toiva. So the transition from Parshas Lech Lecha Vayera to Parshas Chayei Sora is a very sharp transition. I mean, it's going from a stormy life and a most challenging life to a calm, regular life. Torah, is Miloshen Hayra. The stories of the Torah are coming to teach us something, and the Seder Advarim also has a lesson. So what are we supposed to learn from these two parts of Avram Avinu's life that are so different? If we would be asked, what defines Avram Avinu? Where do we see his greatness? Probably we would point at the events in Parshas Lech Lecha and Vayera. But it turns out that Dafke Parshas Chayei Sora is what defines Avram Avinu. Because the Mishnah in Ovis says, Ba'asora nisyonos nisnase Avram Avinu, right? So he had 10 nisyonis. V'amad bekulon. So what were the nisyonis? What were they? The Mishnah doesn't tell us. The Mishnah doesn't tell us, but the Rambam and the Rav, they go through the Esen Nisyonis based on Midrash Chazal. According to them, the 10th Nisoyan, the final Nisoyan, the final test that Avram Avinu was tested was the Akedah. However, the Rabbeinu Yoina in his Pirush Ta'avis, says that no, says that the Ha'asiri Kvura Sara she'omar loy kum hishalech ba'oretz la'orko l'rachba kilcho etnena u'chshemesa ishtoi loy motza mokoim l'kavra ad shekanoi. So the final nisayon was the fact that Avram Avinu, in spite of the fact that he was promised Eretz Yisrael, he nevertheless needed to buy a kaver for Sara. Now, this is kind of unbelievable because Avram Avinu already passed the test of Kach no es bincha es yichitzcha asher ahavta es yitzchak v'haleu shem la'oila alachad ahorim asher omer elecha, which is the greatest nisayon of all. And he's saying that's we can't even understand. And now he's being tested with another test. And what is it? They don't have to buy a grave for his wife. It's nothing compared to what he already went through. I mean, it's true. HaKadosh Baruch Hu promised him the land, but he didn't tell him a date. I mean, when he's going to get the land. And even more, on the pasuk Ger v'soishav anoichi imachem, Rashi says, what's Ger v'toishav? Rashi says in the name of the Midrash Haggadah, Im tirtzu hareini ger v'im lav ege toishav v'etlanu min adin shamli HaKadosh Baruch Hu l'zeracha et nesor tzazai. So Avram Avinu was in the position to realize his kinyan in Eretz Yisrael that the Rebbeinu Shalom gave him. It was just that he, lechatchila, wanted them to give it to him, to sell it to him, and he threatened them. So, I mean, where is the great nisayon? The nisayon is that he didn't see Ephraim come to him and offer him the land on his own, and that's how he should have expected it to happen based on the Rebbeinu Shalom's promise. It seems like a tiny test that we don't even see what the test is. And this is the climax. I mean, this goes beyond the Akedah according to the Rabbeinu Yoina. No, according to the other Rishonim, it's not one of the 10 Nisyonis. But nevertheless, it's Mavur and Chazal, as Rashi brings in the beginning of Parshas Va'era, that when Moshe Rabbeinu complained, Lama harayoisa la'ama zeh, lama zeh shlachtani, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave him Musa, and he said, "Chaval al da abdin v'lo mishtachin." It's a pity that those the others are gone, and they're not with us anymore. Shekeshebikesh Avram likbor esara loy motza kevat shekona b'domim merubim v'lo hiri rachem edaisa. He didn't question my ways, in spite of the fact that he had to pay a high price for the Ma'oras HaMachpelah. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu is pointing out the greatness of Avram Avinu, that he wasn't maharher achar midoisov shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the process of buying the Ma'oras HaMachpelah. No. In other words, it means that it's not self-understood that Avram Avinu would be that way. And we're talking about Avram Avinu that already did the Akedah. The Akedah is the greatest. Loy hirher achar midoisai. The Rebbeinu Shalom promised him ki beyitzchok yikorei lecho zera, and then he told him kachna has been chos yichitzcha v'aleu shom lo'oila, and he wasn't maharach midoisav, and it's still a chiddush. It's still a chiddush that he wasn't maharach midoisav shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the context of buying the Ma'oras HaMachpelah. So it would seem that dafka when a person is doing the regular daily things, he might be caught off guard. When Avram Avinu is facing face to face the greatest test in Emunah, the test of the Akedah, so he's all worked up. I mean, he's fully aware of the greatness of this Nisayan, of the greatness of the moment, and he takes upon himself the oil Malchus Shamayim ba'ahava, and without any pickpook, without any doubt. But nevertheless, it's possible that when he's busy with the small regular things that everyone does, like buying a grave for his wife, he should all of a sudden, a thought should enter his mind. And so why am I buying this? I mean, wasn't I promised? Dafka in the small things. In other words, the great people are measured not by the big things, but by the small things. Avram Avinu is defined more based on his behavior in Parshas Chayei Sara than by his behavior in Parshas Lech Lecha and Vayera. That's Mefurish and Chazal. According to Rabbeinu Yoda, this is the 10th Nisayan, and the Sichos and Shalav the Ovis in the way Avram Avinu goes about in looking for a shidduch for Yitzchak. This is what tells us Avram Avinu's greatness. V'ahavtas Hashem Elokecha b'chol levavcha b'chol nafshecha b'chol mo'idecha. So Rashi says b'chol nafshecha afilu hu noitles nafshecha. What's b'chol mo'idecha? The first shot is b'chol memoincha, and Chazal and explain why does this need to be said. We're talking about somebody that is already willing to give up his life. So why do we have to talk about his money? Chazal say, and Rashi brings it, Yesh lecha adam, shememoinoi chaviv olav migufay, lokach nema b'chol mo'idecha. There are such people that care more about their money than about their life, and therefore, the Torah says b'chol me'oidecha. But then Rashi says davar acher, another pshat, b'chol mo'idecha, b'chol mido shu moided lecha. Every measure that he measures to you, bein b'mido toiva, bein b'midas pranas. V'chein b'David hu ha'mekois Yeshuos esa u'v'shem Hashem ekra tzara v'yogain emtza v'shem Hashem ekra. He doesn't lose his relationship with the Rebbeinu Shalom on a bad day. In other words, midas toiva, midas pranas, it doesn't undo his ava to the Rebbeinu Shalom. Now, according to the first pirush, that mo'idecha is money, Chazal explained that even after the b'chol nafshecha, afilu hu noitles nafshecha, the Torah adds b'chol mo'idecha because yesh lecha adam shememoinich olav yoysa migufay. But according to the pirush, that b'chol mo'idecha means b'chol mida u'mida shehu mo'ided lecha. Bein mida toiva, bein midas peranas. So, I mean, somebody that's willing to give up his life. So he's willing to die. So now we have to say, and by the way, I mean, you should love the Rebbeinu Shalom even if you're having a hard day. I mean, the ultimate midas pranas is nafshecha, and he's already willing to give away the nafshecha. So why are we adding ubechol mo'idecha bechol mida shu moided lecha? So obviously, we have to say that the noitles nafshecha is more difficult, but it's possible that when a person is facing the great nisayon of to be or not to be in a spiritual sense, so he will draw on the deepest koiches hanefesh, and he will be oimid in the nisayon. But on a daily basis, when sometimes it's up, sometimes it's down, sometimes it's better, sometimes it's worse, sometimes it's a midah toiva, sometimes it's a midah pranis, it's much harder to hold on and not be mahar achim midoisach. It's possible that he'll fall in this test, in the test of Ahavtas Hashem Elokecha b'chol mo'idecha, b'chol mida u'mida shu moided lecha, because he's not on guard and he's not mindful and he's not attributing his daily affairs to the Rebbeinu Shalom, and he's not making that part of his relationship with the Rebbeinu Shalom, like David HaMelech says, Kois Yeshuos esa uv'shem Hashem ekra, and Sara v'yogain emtza uv'shem Hashem ekra. The ability to call out to the Rebbeinu Shalom, both in the Midah Toiva and in the Midah Peronis, that goes beyond the bechol nafshecha, the willingness to give up your life. Like the pasuk says, mi yale bahar Hashem umi yokum b'mkaim kodshay. Because when one is ascending, one is climbing, one is going up into the Har Hashem, I mean, there's a certain excitement, there's a certain islavus, there's a certain fire. But once he's high up there, and it's just, the daily grind, he's just doing it again and again. Sometimes we lose the fire, and we're not living with an awareness of who we are and what we're doing and why we're doing and who we're doing it for, and that's the added nisayon of mi yokum b'mekayim kodshay, not only being able to be yale b'har Hashem, but being able to be yokum b'mekayim kodshay is another madrega. There's a very interesting shtickle from Reb Chaim Shmulevitz in this week's parsha. It's in the Sichas Musa in Parshas Chayei Sara Tavshin Lamed Gimel. He says, I explained to myself the difference between Avram and Sara in the Nisoyan of Akedas Yitzchak. He says, Avram was Kovash Es Rachamov, and he took the Machelis, Lishchet Es Beno Yechidei Al Gabi HaMizbeach. However, Sara, he says, who was greater than Avram in Nevuah, as soon as she heard that her son was taken to be sacrificed, loy omad liba umesa. As Rashi says in the beginning of our parsha, Vayovei Avram lispoit l'sora v'levkoisa, Rashi says, v'nismecha misa sora la'akedas Yitzchak. Lefi, shal yidei b'soiras ha'akeda, shenizdamein beno l'shchita, ukemat shaloi nishchat, porcha nishmasa mimena umesa. When she heard that he was taken to be sacrificed, she died. In the Targum Yodim Ben Zil, it says that the Satan went and told her that Avram shechted Yitzchak, and she died miroif tsar. So he says, so what's the difference between her and Avram? Why couldn't she withstand this pain of Yitzchak being sacrificed? Avram Avinu, he says, did the Maisa Akeda, and Chazal say his hands didn't even shake. He was like a kohen ha'isa avodah b'mikdash, and Sara, who was greater than him in Nevuah, she couldn't handle it. So he says that Avram Avinu hichnisa HaKadosh Baruch Hu l'toich ha'nisoyin bi'itius. Slowly, HaKadosh Baruch Hu brought him into this nisoyin. K'mo shepirish Rashi mikra shekosov, it says es bincha es yichidcha asher ahavta es Yitzchak. Rashi says es bincha. Amaloi, Avram Avinu said to the Rebbeinu Shalom, shnei bonim yeshli. So he said, es yichidcha. The yichidcha. So Avram Avinu said, ze yochid le'imoy, v'ze yochid le'imoy. Each one is a ben yochid to his mother. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, asher ahavta, the one that you love, amalei es shnei amani oyev, amalei es Yitzchak. So Rashi says in the parsha of the Akedah, the lama loy gila loy mitchila. Why didn't he just tell him straight out? So Rashi sheloi la arva v'y pisoim v'tazuach daitish olav v'titoref, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu went slow with him, because if he would tell it to him at once, he might just lose his mind. So says Reb Chaim Shmulevitz, so you see that if HaKadosh Baruch Hu would have told him straightforward that he wants him to shecht Yitzchak, he wouldn't be able to take it. He wouldn't be able to be Eved Nisayan. And therefore he told it to him tipin. First he said, es bincha, es yichidcha, sherahavta, es Yitzchak. And Memela, there were pauses. He says, ba'oisan hashehiyos, niskararu rigshoysav shel Avram. With each one of these pauses, he became accustomed to it. He lost the hergish became schwacher. His feeling became schwacher. V'yochol hoyo ligbar al ga'agui ahavosei leYitzchak, etc. Aval Sara yimenu shenoida lo dvar hakravosei shel Yitzchak bepesoimiyus lo yomad liba uparcha nishmasa. Right? So, and then he says that if this is true in this context, he says, Avad, it's true in Avodas Hashem that the first time there's excitement, the when it hits us, I mean, it pinches our imagination. But after we become accustomed to it, he says, we become mistagel, we become accustomed to something, it doesn't do it anymore. It doesn't do it anymore. And he brings a Chassid Yavitz, who was during the Spanish Inquisition. So the Chassid Yavitz writes in his Pirush on Pirkei Avos in Perik Aleph Mishnah Daled. There's a pasuk in Yecheskel, Habo derech shar tzofon leishtachavois yetze derech shar negev. Somebody that came into the Mikdash through the northern gate goes out through the southern gate. V'habo derech shar negev, somebody that comes through the southern gate, yetze derech shar tzafona, goes out through the northern gate. Lo yoshuv derech hashar asher bo shom ki nochecho yetze. She go out from the other side. So the Chassid Yavitz says, Hikbid HaKadosh Baruch Hu, shelo yira hashar beis pamim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is makbid, a person shouldn't see the same gate twice. He says, Pen yoshuv be'einav l'shar beisai. He'll see it twice, it'll become like the gate of his own house. The kirois habayis l'kiroisav. The walls of the Mikdash will become like the walls of his house. He says, it lost meaning because the oil of Moshe Rabbeinu was in the machne. And that's why they said, Asay lanu Elohim, because they lost the chshivas for Moshe Rabbeinu. And that's why after that he says that Moshe Rabbeinu, hirgish bozeh, v'nota ha'oil michutz lamachne, harchik min ha'machne. Overexposure is dangerous. That's also really the idea of Chachmasei Meruba Mimaisav, the danger of Chachmasei Meruba Mimaisav, because, the more you know, if you don't do something about it, you become desensitized. I mean, I've been there, done that. I mean, it doesn't give me that thrill and excitement anymore. That's why when somebody acquires Chachma, he has to immediately put it into Maisa. In any case, in this context, we could understand for another reason why it's sometimes harder to pass the test of B'chol Ma'idecha, B'chol Midah, Umidah Shumoided L'cha, Be'midah B'stayva, Be'midah Spranis, because a person gets used to every type of situation, over time, and his sensitivity is lost. And the Mela, a person can become spiritually asleep or spiritually dead, over time, and therefore the B'chol Midah Umidah Shemoidah L'cha requires a certain level of mindfulness in order to be able to maintain and not only maintain but further develop our relationship with the Rebbeinu Shalom through the Midah Tova and the Midas Kronos, not like a one-time experience of B'chol Nafshecha, Afilu Hu Noitles Nafshecha. So that the previous generation, let's say, experienced super dramatic things. The Holocaust and the rebuilding of the Jewish people. And in general, in Eretz Yisrael, the rebuilding of Torah, and that's like the Lech Lecha Vayera mode. But that's the mode of Miyah Lebehar Hashem. But once, we were born on the mountain, we're like experienced the Nisayan of Mi Yokum B'Mkayim Kotche. Right? There isn't that much drama. It's like it's another day and another day, and there's the danger. There's the danger of losing vitality, and therefore, we have to make every effort to be mischadesh, to renew ourselves. Like it says, Achas sho'alti me'es Hashem oisa avakesh. Shivti beveis Hashem kol yemei chayai lachzois be'noyam Hashem u'levakei bericholim. My father used to say that it's a special bakosha that even if I'm shivti beveis Hashem kol yemei chayai, I should still have a feeling like I'm a vaker beichole, like a first time visitor, because when you're there a day in and day out, you lose your excitement. You know, the Gemara says in Avodah Zarah, Daf Yud Ches, by Reb Chanina bar Tradian, that during the Gzeres Hamalchus, he was Yoshev, so there was a Shas Sakona, they were guys on learning Torah, and he was Yoshev va'oisek b'Torah u'makel kehilos b'rabim v'sefer Torah munach lo b'cheikot. So Reb Chanina bar Tradian was Moise Nefesh, not like today they say Moise Nefesh. I mean, he was Moise Nefesh. Yeah, he was Moise Nefesh for both in the Lilmoid and in the Lalamed. He put his life in danger. But nevertheless, when he asked Reb Yossi ben Kisma, Ma ani l'chayei olam haba? Do I have olam haba? So Reb Yossi ben Kisma says to him, Klum maisa boli otcha? Is there any maisa came to you? Anything particular that happened? So Reb Chanina bar Tradian says to him, Ma'os shel Purim, nischalfu li b'mo'os shel tzedakah v'chilaktim laniyim. I had in my pocket Ma'os shel Purim, and it got mixed up with Ma'os shel tzedakah, and I gave it all away to the aniyim. And only then did Rabbi Yosef ben Kisma say to him, Cain, mi chelkecho yehei chelki, umi goyrolcho yehei goyroli. So there's no doubt that Habotas Torah B'Rabim during the Gzeira was with endangering its own life was a heroic deed, but Dafke, because it's such a great thing, it doesn't so much define the one that's doing it, because big things even small people can do. You need to be a big person to be able to do the small things. In other words, because the small things, I mean, first of all, you're not on guard. Second of all, there's no thrill and excitement. And therefore, Rabbi Yosef ben Kisma says to him, the only way I can know if you're a Ben Olam Haba is if you tell me something small. I mean, I know you're Yosef and Yosef b'Sefer Torah Munach Lo B'Cheika and Yemakel Kehilos B'Rabim. I know all that, but tell me something small. And when he tells him that Mois shel Purim neschalef li b'Mois shel Tzedakah v'chilaktim lanim, then he says Michelkecho yehei chelki. So I'm saying we don't, in our life, we don't have the Lech Lecha Vayera, but we have a lot of Chayei Sara, and therefore we have the opportunity. We have the opportunity to pay attention to details, and to make everything we do meaningful, and that's by keeping the Rebbeinu Shalom in mind. Rabbi Say, I wish you a good Shabbos.